earthquake. We're having an earthquake. I've just taken a hit.
We've been hit with a major earthquake, trying to figure out where this has been centered.
Get out of your house, dude.
Somebody's in there.
Evacuate the area.
Fire department.
Who's trapped?
Right here. This is a crack in the 5 freeway.
The part of Interstate 10 collapsed.
Tremendous split in this building.
We're having shakers going on while we're in the building.
It's holding the cement up about that far to where I can crawl into them.
We're right over Cal State Northridge. The fire that you are seeing is burning on, it looks like, the 3rd floor of one of the either classroom kind of buildings or office buildings here at Cal State Northridge. What you're looking at now is the parking structure that collapsed at Cal State Northridge. Again, this was something...
On January 17, 1994, California State University Northridge was hit by a magnitude 6.7 earthquake. The epicenter was located just 3 miles from campus. Fortunately, the earthquake struck at 4:31 in the morning on a national holiday during semester break. 2 university administrators were living on campus when the earthquake struck.
Well, what happened was that all of a sudden it sounded like a train or something was coming through with the roar, and everything started to really shake. And when I came to myself, I thought, oh boy, this must be the big one that we've been waiting on. And I just thought, it's never going to stop.
The other piece I remember about that morning was the incredible silence and darkness, because there were no lights. Then, at some time after that, we thought that the sun had risen because suddenly it got very light, and we stood on the remains of the bed and pulled the curtain back and realized that immediately north of us, some blocks of houses had exploded. It was not the sunrise. It was this fire, this huge fire. So I went down to the police station and I saw the police chief. And then he said, you know, ma'am, you're in charge because the president can't reach the campus. And so you need to tell us what to do. And standing tall in my T-shirt and lovely outfit, I said, well, what do we usually do in an earthquake? And he said, we secure the campus. So I said, secure the campus. And I remember thinking, I wonder what that means, to secure the campus. Are they going to put a fence around it? I mean, what are they going to do?
The impact of the quake was immediately apparent. Major structures suffered extensive damage. Fires broke out in the science buildings. In her home, 50 miles from the epicenter, Diane Much, a public safety liaison for the California State University system, realized the severity of the quake and began contacting all of the system's Southern California campuses. When she was unable to reach Northridge, Much asked police officers from other campuses to go there to investigate.
When the chief from Dominguez finally got to Cal State Northridge, he called back, and I believe he used a cellular phone. At that point, we knew that all communications were down.
When I arrived at the campus, the first folks that I met were some small number of police personnel, a dispatcher, and probably 2 police officers. They were outside the building. They had made the decision to evacuate it and moved out to a table and 4 chairs. For the most part, that was the department at that time.
And you see this field here full of people. Now, we want to try to get in tight and see if, we're not sure if this is an evacuation center.
And I wanted to know how many of the campus people that normally work there were available. And what was unfortunate was that there weren't very many there, but there was a reason why. And the reason was their own homes were in fact devastated by the damage as well that the earthquake caused.
When you have any injury to somebody in your family and you're with them, you're certainly not going to abandon them to return to the workplace. I think you have to have a sense of priorities. What we find is most people will take care of their family first, see that their family is situated before they then leave them for what could be an extended period of time.
Northridge's Emergency Operations Center had to be evacuated. Emergency communications were restored only after a mobile command post arrived from Cal State Fullerton. The Orange County Search and Rescue Team arrived late in the morning to aid the response effort. One of their tents became the operations center as staff began securing the campus.
especially that first day of the earthquake when we were just absolutely inundated with everything. We had volunteers showing up at the door. We had commercial people showing up at the door. We had engineers, structural people, architects, and we had the press. And we had a lot of the press. We had tactical issues that people don't really think about. Here we had several hundred people coming to assist. We had logistical needs. We needed emergency lighting. We needed food. We needed portable toilets because water and utilities were all out. There was only one person on campus who had access to where checks are located that could be used for making emergency purchases. And that individual was reluctant to go back and to obtain the checks in the building. And here we are with 200 people to feed and to take care of in these logistical needs, and we ended up having to rely on the good graces of some of our local businesses that extended credit, and some of our individuals went in their pocket and submitted their own credit cards to the few food locations that we could find open. So many things were going on that we tried to simply keep everyone we could away from the buildings. Another effort of containment was to have the lock shop come in, and they changed the cores on the building entrances.
While police secured the campus, other staff searched the buildings for injuries or fatalities and began assessing the damage.
One of the difficulties we had in sweeping the buildings to do a structural inspection was our concerns about how safe it was to enter the buildings, and not being really structural experts, it was kind of tough to make that judgment call.
I found out that our physical plant area had conducted and was in the process of completing building sweeps. As they went into buildings, they were checking the various areas to make sure that there were no people trapped inside. That included opening, forcing open, or in some cases with a chainsaw simply cutting through doors where they were unable to get the door open. We found out a lot about things such as how to set up an office as a result of this. Many file cabinets near doors fell behind the doors. Books fell off of bookcases into piles sometimes 3 and 4 feet high. The result of that was there was a solid wedge, and you could not open that door even if you had a key.
Fires burned in 2 science buildings for most of the morning. Fire crews monitored the situation. Because of the hazardous materials in the buildings, they didn't fight the fires until the contents were identified. Chemistry department personnel watched the fires burn for hours.
As soon as it got light is when I came to campus, because I could just imagine what might have been going on here. And I wasn't really worried about our area, I mean, where I work in the stockroom area. I was worried about research labs. And my worries were confirmed when I got here because there were 3 fires.
I think the first kind of impression that I had was, what a disaster. Couldn't believe it. Almost unbelievable, because of, you could see all this fire and smoke, and you knew that everything in there was going to be severely damaged. And then once the firefighters got on with their fire hoses, that created even, I guess, more painful feelings inside of me, because I know what all that water can do.
And that was the most frustrating thing, just watching all your stuff. And, I've been working there for so long, and all these things just burn up there's nothing you can do.
Now, I didn't realize the extent of the damage in Building 3, where we had what I thought was a very small fire, and which turned out to be probably the most expensive fire of them all, because it destroyed all our instrumentation. Probably, I would guess, between $1 million, maybe $2 million worth of equipment went down the drain in that small fire in Building 3 because of the soot.
I saw a science faculty member in his 50s who was standing watching the fire and crying. And he said, "That's my life's work, and I don't have another life." And it's the first time it hit me that the damage internally was damage to the intellectual life of 1,000 faculty. But even then, however, I thought of it as that building. And I spent some time talking to him, but way, it was a very private grief, and there was nothing to say. His research was gone. And for most scientist faculty, that is a lifetime. It starts in graduate school. You go on in your first job, you build on your research, you file your notes, and that's all in that building.